Hi there, as usual it's me, just a voiceover. You're watching Review Machines, and today we are going to enjoy the beauty of winter nature. Snowmobiles are probably most emotional kind of transport, aren't they? The frosty wind, endless snowy fields and real freedom. But sometimes it's the only possible transport in snow. As a rule, popular family sleds are rather costly, but today we'll review the simplest and cheapest models of them. The most interesting, all the sleds have different tracks, wider and longer, and we'll find out what track is more effective. You might have seen similar machines on this channel, but today we have the newest models for the review, so it's going to be an exciting test. Let's do it! As I said, you saw these sleds on the channel, but I just remind you of the manufacturer. Actually, it's a small company that specializes in producing the simplest and affordable snowmobiles, but very effective in hot conditions. Today we have in our inventory 3 new models with different tracks. Shehan Snowmobile with double track, BTS 600 with wide track, and BTS Super Long with a long track. Now we will look at each model and have a brief ride. And then we will test them in the severest conditions we can find today. But before that, please consider subscribing our channel, my friends, it's very important for us. Thank you. First things first, the exterior and the whole design. In fact, the sleds look very simple and minimalistic. I can't say they look quite effective, but there are many fans of such a design. Actually, the sleds are made to be as practical as possible, and their design results from that idea. The whole construction is very simple. That is why these vehicles are considered as very reliable machines. On the other hand, they have all the necessary equipment for winter travel. Let's look at it. We start with the Shehan model. The length of the sled is 3100 mm, the width is 900 mm, the weight is 250 kilos. There are 2 seats. There is enough room for 2 people. There is only one ski at the front, equipped with a leaf spring suspension. And there is double track, 380 mm each. The suspension of the chassis is very simple. There are aluminum rollers and springs. The rollers don't have axles between them, as a result this gear works as some kind of independent suspension. Besides, there is much room inside the chassis, so it isn't clogged with snow when moving. Under the hood we have 2 cylinders, 680cc 29 HP engine working together with CVT transmission. Fuel tank 29 liters is under the seat. The dashboard is the simplest. There is a windshield, handle heaters and powerful headlamp. The engine has both electric and manual starter. The gearbox works properly. Well, let's try it. Such kind of a sled is rather peculiar when driving it. Due to the double track, it's very stable, even in turns. If a regular sled feels more like a motorbike, this one is like a quad. The snowmobile is rather tough, and the handle is heavy. When driving it, it takes serious efforts to turn the snowmobile. But this sled has another significant advantage. Because of the huge track, this sled has outstanding capabilities to go through the deep snow. The engine feels sufficient for the most cases, but do not expect any insane performance. As we remember, we have here only 29 HP. Well, let's look at the next model. This snowmobile is called BTS Super Long. Its length is 2950 mm, the width is 1100, and the weight is 240 kilos. There are also 2 seats. The main feature of the sled is a long track, 3636 mm length and 500 mm width. There is a peculiar suspension that doesn't require snow to be cooled, so it's possible to move on ice, for example. At the front we see a double ski. The engine is the same, 680cc, 2 cylinders, 29 HP and CVT. The dashboard is even simpler, with no gauges, but there are handle heaters. The fuel tank is under the seat. The gears are shifted well, but only when the engine rotates slowly. In practice, this sled feels different than the previous one. It has the same engine, and the acceleration performance is the same, but this sled goes much softer. As we remember, it has an advanced suspension as opposed to the Shihan sled. Besides, it also has decent capabilities in deep snow due to the long and wide track. We will compare them a bit later. In general, it's a soft, comfortable snowmobile. It's a pleasure to ride it. It's comfy to sit here, but the handle is too low to stand and drive. And this sled has a classic snowmobile maneuvering, unlike Shihan sled. And one more sled, it's called BTX 600. The length is 2950mm, 1100mm width, and 240 kilos weight, and the same two seats. The main feature here is a wider track, 600mm, and its length is 2333mm. The suspension is as on the Shihan, simple and reliable, but probably quite tough. There are two front skis with leaf spring suspension, the same engine under the hood, 29 HP with CVT as usually, 28 liters fuel tank, primitive dashboard, handle heaters and powerful lamp. Let's have a ride. This sled is felt like something between the previous one and Shihan sled. The engine performance is the same, it's quite dull actually, but torquey. As to the suspension, it's softer than Shihan, but harder than super long. Besides, it's quite good at handling, it's pleasure to drive this sled. Then it's comfy to sit on the snowmobile, but it's hard to stand on it, due to the low handle. As the previous sleds, this one is considered as rather capable in deep snow, because of the wide track. But we will check it a bit later. By the way, what do you think is more effective, double track, long one or wide? Let me know in the comments, and we will check it in practice. Now let's measure the top speed of the sleds. And we will check it right on the wild snow. It will be more interesting. We start with Shihan. Let's go. Despite it has a heavy double track, it accelerates up to 47 km per hour. Let's try the next model, it's BTX 600. As we remember, this sled has 600mm wide track. Despite this fact, the maximum speed is the same, 47 km per hour. It's a good result taking into account we are going on a wild snow. And finally, a super long sled. Let me remind you, it has a longer track, but the speed is approximately the same, 48 km per hour. So all the sleds have almost the same speed. By the way, we also checked the speed on the flat road, and the result is 52 km per hour. We are moving on, and now it's time to test our sleds in deep snow. Actually, the snow is deep, but it's rather thick on the fields, so all the sleds are moving on it without any difficulties. Well, let's move to the forest, in search of really tough conditions. Here on the rough terrain we can see the difference in the suspension performance. This kind of suspension provides a smooth and comfortable riding, and it doesn't need snow to be cooled. This type of suspension based on rollers are much simpler and cheaper. There is much room inside the chassis and it isn't clogged with snow, but it's rather hard for a rider, frankly speaking. Finally, we found some spots with really deep snow, as you can see. Let's try our sleds here. But all the vehicles go through this obstacle without any hesitations. Meantime, it's getting dark outside, and we found another interesting snowy place. BTX 600 passed this test. We try one more time in another place. The result is the same. It seems today we can't find any places where our sleds would get stuck. Well, it's time to make some conclusions. As we've seen today, both variants, wide and long track, provide approximately the same performance in deep snow. But too wide track, like on Shihan, makes handling of the sled too hard, and the sled feels more like a quad than a snowmobile. By the way, speaking about the price, standard version of BTS sled cost only about $3,000. Well, let's go today, my friends. Thanks for having a ride with us. Please check another our video about other similar snowmobiles. Stay with us, there will be many more interesting materials here. Goodbye.